My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people. All right, welcome back, everybody. Eli here, and today on Meet Cool People, we have somebody that I have the pleasure of having as a client and a friend, Lori Howard. And let me tell you a little bit about her before I bring her in here. She helps accomplished tech leaders figure out what's next and go after it with clarity and confidence. She's an executive career coach and leadership coach with deep roots in tech, working with senior leaders, navigating transitions, visibility, and new phase of impact. And she's founded the Executive Edge, a private leadership space for tech execs who are done with performance leadership. And she's most known for saying things that others won't and helping leaders see what they can't see. With that said, Lori, thanks for coming and hanging out today.
Thank you for having me, Eli. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's way, way overdue because, we've been planning this for months.
I know. That's on me. Here I am. Here we are.
Here we are. And it's always funny because I'm sure you've probably even heard me say this is like there's this time where you have, friends that become clients are usually horrible clients. The clients that become friends become great friends. And you and I have become really good friends over the last couple of years, which has been a lot of fun. I had the pleasure of working with you from that standpoint, getting to know the ins and outs of what you do and see like all the brilliance that you have and the stuff that you're helping people with. So that is obviously one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you come in the show. So come and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. That's very nice.
Awesome. So we already did your introduction, but let's talk a little bit about, what is it that you help your clients with?
Well, the first thing, so they come to me knowing that they want to find their next role. Most of the time they're wanting to find their next role outside of their company. Sometimes it's inside. Sometimes they're trying to move up. And they realize they're at a point in their career where they know kind of what they want. They don't necessarily what they really bring and what their real value is. And so they come talking about things like branding and positioning. And apparently a very popular question in interviews today is, what are your superpowers? And that throws everyone off because it feels a little whimsical. Right. It doesn't feel professional. You're like, what do you mean with my superpowers? I'll tell my husband or my kid, but I don't know you. What kind of question is that? And so we really talk about what are your superpowers as a professional? What are the things you do and that you bring that have value to the organization that you work for? And what do you really love about what you do? The marketplace today very much it continues to want people to enjoy their jobs, which is lovely. That's the gift of the millennials to the marketplace overall, is wanting to check in on that and wanting you to like what you do. But they often don't know how to talk about any of that. They're so used to just doing the job, right? I do the job, I contribute, I add value, I lead my teams, I do these things. What do you mean? What I have to talk about that now? How do I do that?
Yeah. You said something really interesting that I think is really big. I want to go into some more detail with this because you brought up positioning and branding for executives, for the person. Yeah. And this is one of the reasons why you and I see so well eye to eye, because of the fact that I've always talked about, it doesn't matter what business you have, you still have to have a personal brand along with that. Yeah. And this is just another level of that. So let's go into a little bit more detail in what does that branding, that positioning look like from an employee standpoint versus an entrepreneur standpoint?
In many ways, it's pretty similar, right? The things you say are like when you're introducing yourself and you're telling someone your brand, it's who do you help? Like, who are the people you like helping? What are and in this case, in my client's case, who are the companies you like helping? What kinds of organizations do you want to work with? What kinds of people do you want to be helping? What do you help them do? And when we say that for executives, it's what problems do you help organizations solve? What and what value do you bring? And that's the piece. They all know what problems they solve. They're not very good at talking about the value they bring. Many of the clients I work with feel like that's isn't that obvious? Don't people already know that? And the answer is no. No, they don't. If you don't tell them, they don't know. And then the other piece that shows up in a professional branding, sort of professional positioning way is, what are you passionate about? And I have clients who are passionate about everything from technology and the evolution of technology and what technology can do. They might also be passionate about the teams they lead, the people they mentor, the leaders they help develop. And for every individual, that combination of things is different. And it starts to help reveal what are your strengths, and when I say superpowers, it's sort of that, what are the things you do that make you successful? And you might have two different CIOs or a whole room full of CIOs or heads of engineering, and the things they do that make them successful will all be a little bit different. You never see the same thing twice, not when they're really talking about personally what makes them successful as the head of engineering, as a leader in an organization.
I love it. And that is so, so true, because, I always talk about that from the business standpoint. It's like all of us, no matter what business we're in, there's 1,000 other people that do the thing that we do.
Yeah.
But people aren't buying that. Yes, they want the results. That's the ultimate, problem you're solving, but it's you that they're buying. It's your personality. It's your strengths. It's the things that make you stand out. And every one of us has that from a different aspect, different experience, quite honestly. And so that's why I love what you're doing with that, is because you're taking that piece that's much more, normally would be much more cookie cutter or more assembly line mindset, and shifting that to, no, each one of us brings our uniqueness into it and our strengths, which are going to be different even for the same position.
Yeah. I had a client recently who came to me going, Lori, all of the leaders I work for, he was like, I have so much experience working for people who are just cold and impersonal, and they don't care about the people. And maybe that's the way I need to be to move ahead. And we had this long conversation about how, for him, his ability to be empathetic, to understand, and lead with a very, they would call it a high EQ, right? The emotional intelligence piece.
Yeah.
He brings so much of that and is so passionate about how he takes care of the people to help them perform at their best, which is the piece that every company wants. They want people to perform at their best.
Right.
And he brings this unique way of doing it. And he's there thinking, well, nobody else does it, so it can't be valuable. And first, that makes me sad.
Right.
Makes me sad. And second, it's the opposite. And so he started to relook at what he really brings, his real superpowers. It's a combination of helping people work at their best by caring about people. And he had endless feedback from people who worked for him in the past, where they all talk about his ability to lead people, to lead them, to lead others, and how that inspired them and how much they learned from him.
Right.
And he was ready. But because we live in a world where people aren't helping you see what the thing is for you, if you can't see it and see the strength yourself, you might miss it, which is what's so, it's rewarding for me to be able to help someone get there and see that and realize that thing that they feel like no one else has, sometimes that's the secret thing that they bring.
Right.
That makes them incredibly effective.
Right. That's the magic sauce.
Exactly. That's what I was just thinking. I was like, this is a secret sauce.
Yep.
And I was like, don't say that.
Well, but it's true. That's what it is. That is that's what makes it different.
It is.
And
powerful.
Yeah.
And valuable, because if you're in an environment where you're one of the few bringing that, how is that not rounding out the entire leadership team? How is
Yeah.
that not good for the organization? The thing that they don't have and that they most need, you can bring. I'm sure they're aware of it.
Hmm.
They might not talk about it in those terms, but they know there's a gap. And if
Right.
you come in and bring that, but if you don't tell them that, they won't know you bring it. If you resort to the same stuff everybody else says, and we see that in the kind of businesses we do. And as business owners, new business owners in particular, end up sounding like everybody else,
Hmm.
right? You sound all generic and like, well, yes, that's valuable, but knowing what makes you different helps people see the thing that that extra thing they want.
Right. Well, and that's what makes that vibe work. Makes it so somebody wants to work with you. And it's, from an entrepreneur standpoint, it's like that's why clients come to me.
Yeah.
Because I know I've shared this with you. I've had people come to me and say, tell me what it is you actually sell, because I'm not still sure yet, but I do know I want to work with you. And they become clients because of that. Then they're like, okay, yeah, I definitely need that thing. But they knew they wanted to work with me before I actually explained the details of it, because that personality fit, that the vibe was right. It was how I communicated with them. And I think that comes across from an employee standpoint too. I mean, it comes across in any form of communication, like you brought up, in EQ. That's something we all need to strive to be better at, no matter where we are. And
Yeah.
so I love that you're helping them bring that out. Now, you focus specifically on executives in the tech industry.
I
What
do.
was it that got you into niching down that tight? Because so many people don't.
I came out of tech.
Okay.
And when I first came out of tech, I was like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to do that anymore. And then after exploring that, I realized that those are my favorite people. They get me and I get them.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I stepped to the other side and am not working in tech in that way, not the way, I'm not working inside an organization and leading teams anymore. I understand the tech leaders. I see that, and the challenges they have today aren't really that different from the challenges I had. Nobody tells you how to you either become a leader and figure it out, or
Mm-hmm.
you luck your way into figuring it out.
Right.
The leadership training doesn't really tell you anything about how to be a leader and how to move up. So I worked really hard to figure out those things. And it was brutal because nobody was telling you anything. And when you come out of tech, everybody views you as different, right? It's like, you're a tech person.
Right.
And I don't know how to talk to you. I don't know how to, I don't know. So you're leading now with other people who are not from that space. And they're like, well, I don't know what to tell you because you have this kind of reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Not just you personally, but tech
Right.
people have a specific reputation of being highly introverted, not being good with people. That
Yeah.
is not true. But there is, you got to know your
There's
people.
a stigma to it. Yeah.
Yes. And some people still hold on to that. They're like, look, I'm in tech. I don't want to do these things. But tech is, there are other elements, like tech isn't going anywhere.
Right.
I still love tech. I love the evolution of tech. I love seeing what tech can do. I often tell my clients, now I have the cool part where I get to pay attention to everything that happens and all the evolution, and no one calls me in the middle of the night.
Right. Yeah. I
Right?
love it.
I'm not solving problems in the middle of the night anymore. And I like running my own business. I like working in this way. But I love putting great leaders in good companies,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a way for, I feel like I get a little bit of impact from that. Like, everybody needs a good leader. And I
Right.
have the privilege of working with some amazing leaders. And I'm like, these are the people you want to be working with. These are the ones you want to work for.
Right.
And so knowing that other people get to be led by them and I can help them have a greater impact themselves, that's gold to me. That's the thing that makes me feel really good about what I'm doing.
Right.
But it took a while for me. It took a minute or two for me to go, okay, just because I left the corporate world in that way and I do something a little different, it doesn't these are still the people that I get
Right.
and get me. And it helps them to feel understood. And that's the other thing, by specializing in a space, they know I understand them. We're able to talk about things more specifically. And I have this conversation there's a group I'm working with on the side now as a side project, doing some outplacement things. And that's more, you never know what industry those people might be in.
Right.
And so they often are working with whomever on an outplacement side. And so the first thing we talk about is, I'm like, look, I have a lot of experience in this, and I work with experienced tech people. They're like, oh, good. I have something else to tell you then, right? So now they know that they'll be understood, and I will get whatever the thing is they're worried.
Right. No, that is great. And it really is, because, coming from the tech world, because that's where my experience has been most of my life too. It is a very different creature, because again, with the stigmas of introvert and not great at communication, very data driven, which data is important, but that humanity needs to be there as well. And the fact that you're helping, because if you have somebody who is that introvert that doesn't really know, how to communicate more effectively, and you being able to help guide them on that journey is pretty powerful. And it's, that's a lot of people need that.
One of the hardest things for people to do is talk about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They come out so used to doing work, and, they're used to working. And I always tell clients, like, here's the deal. Nobody wants to be actively looking for work. We want to be actively working or on vacation. Let me contribute or be on a break. Like, I don't want to, nobody wants to be hunting.
Right.
And so they don't know how to, they hit a certain level, and suddenly they're not reporting to tech people anymore. So they're not reporting to people who already get the value of what they do. And then suddenly people don't get the value of what they do. And they're like, what? Why don't they see it? Because you have to tell them. Right. And they've never learned how to talk about the value of what they do. They might learn to talk. I have a lot of people who say, I'm really good at talking to the people in the business and communicating between business and technology. This is another level of that. How do you talk about what you do to people who are at and above your level, who are leaders in the organization, and make sure they understand the value you bring? And that's a whole thing that most people are like, well, that's obvious, right? No, it's not obvious. And maybe it should be, but it doesn't matter, because it's not.
Right.
So your part of your job becomes representing for you and your team, making sure other people get the value of what you do, not just they're those tech people doing things over there and I call them when I have a problem, right? It's not that. I mean, I'm glad you see the help in that, but there is so much more they're doing, and it is up to the leaders to know how to talk about it. So I work with people a lot to learn how to talk about it. It's a very common conversation where I'm like, okay, that's great, but what's the value of what you did? What's the impact on the business? Mm-hmm. Well, Lori, it's this. Then say that.
Right.
And and it's not, I sound a little snarky now, but it's not snarky. It's always, because it's such a consistent thing. And when they get it, like, there you go. That's it. That's the sweet spot.
Right.
And they're like, oh, and when I was in the interview and I said these words, the CEO or the COO's eyes lit up. It landed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yay, we did it.
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm in it with them. I'm like, I'm so proud.
That's awesome.
This is exciting.
Well, and that's, you're talking about a lot of stuff that I think is powerful for anybody, no matter where they're at. Again, entrepreneur versus employee kind of situation, because as like new entrepreneurs or new business owners, they have to go through that process, because they think, they know how amazing they are and how great their product is and everything, but they don't know how to communicate it very well. That's, that's like the hardest thing for people to understand, is that positioning and, marketing 101. And it's like, you have to let people know what it is and explain it in terms that they understand.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. What you just said is a key element. And I often use myself as an example for my clients. Like, it's not, because it isn't very different, as you say, let's talk, initially when I started my business, I was like, well, this is what I do. And they were like, yeah. And like, okay, I get that. But lots of people do that. So I don't know what makes that. They didn't know what made it special or different or valuable. And it took me a while to go, oh, I have to talk to you in your language,
Yeah.
in the way that you think, which is what I'm working with my clients on. You have to understand how the CEO thinks and talks, how the head of marketing thinks and talks. So when you talk to them, you're speaking in terms that they are thinking in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not just that they can understand, but in the way they think, and then it connects.
Right. That actually brings me to a question that we've never talked about before.
Yeah.
Do you have them go through personality profiles?
I don't,
Okay.
because, well, one, if they have done any of those, they bring them in and we talk about those.
Okay.
Most of the times, I have them do a different thing. I have them do what I call, I think I developed called the career heart test, where it really gets to the core of who they are now. We do a values evaluation and we talk about those because people like to skip that step and they forget that values change and what's important to them now. As we talk through those, I find that the values of, we get a lot of information about what they want from a company, what they want from the corporate culture, the leadership culture, and the business itself that they don't even realize shows up in how they talk about their values.
Right.
And then the next piece, the career heart test helps them identify what are the things they really want to do, where do they want to do it, what are the decisions they want to make, and that's so it's a little bit of personality and a little bit of, it's really who they are professionally at this moment.
Right. No, okay.
So I will take assessments they've done, but I find that most of my clients have done a lot of those already.
Okay.
And so they're like, I didn't get answers, right? It helped me, but I didn't get answers, because they're very good at helping you interact in the world, but they don't tell you anything about how
you yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I see
Yeah.
how I'm different from you.
Got
I
it.
get that now. You're right. I'm like this, and you're not all going to be like me. So what do I do with
Yeah.
that?
Well, that was more where I was going with it. Was my question was if they're now using that to understand how to communicate with other people better.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things I found
That's
early
really,
on when I first
Mhm.
understood those tests is like,
Yeah.
yes, it's powerful to know yourself, but it's even
Yes.
more powerful to understand the
Yeah.
different types of
Yeah.
personalities and how they think and the words that they use. So
And
that
and
makes a big difference.
and
Yeah.
it talks to but most of those assessments are done on person to person,
Mm-hmm.
not based on the level you're at in the organization and the decisions you make.
Okay.
And right. So I will take everything someone has and we will interpret that and and help make that more valuable for them.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I remember we took Myers-Briggs and DISC when I was working, and we took them all as teams, and it was helpful for me to go, oh, I'm a high this, you're a high that. No wonder we make each other crazy. Okay. Now I can talk to you differently.
Right.
I'm not an idiot and you're not an idiot. We can now figure out what we're really trying to say to each other.
Right.
But this is a different level of that, because it's also understanding, my clients are reporting up to senior level executives. So what are they looking for? What do they want? What's important to them?
Right.
What are they talking about and thinking about all the time? It's not really a secret, right? They're thinking about the function of the business and how they can be successful. And are they making money?
Right.
Are we bringing in money? Are we making money? And what ties to that? Are we bringing in customers? How are we getting to customers? Are customers staying? Right? It's not exactly complicated, but most people who are a few steps removed, if they're not working directly with customers, they tend to not think about them in the same way.
Yeah.
If they're not working directly with the sales team, they're not thinking about that in the same way. It's like you have to connect the dots. The company is investing in you and this is true for every employee, and this is really useful for people today who are worried about AI. The company invests in you as a person, your salary, your benefits, based on the value you bring back to the organization.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to figure out how what you do connects to the bottom line. Right. And it always does. Why are they paying you? They're not paying you because it's cool or because it's fun or because this would be a good idea. They're paying you to do the work you do, the work on the projects you're working in, to add value in the way that you do, so that ultimately it propagates through and they come out stronger for it. If you cost more than the value you bring, it's difficult. And this is a market in particular this year. Companies are looking at because of the way data and data collection and data management and data-driven decision making has progressed. They're looking to they're trying to track it to an individual employee.
Right.
I mean, that's very risky and problematic and going to backfire. But at the moment, you need to be able to speak to that to get hired, and you need to be able to speak to that to get promoted, and understand that connection for yourself, just to make sure you're one that can maintain your career. Otherwise, that's what, that's the decision making happening. I don't think it's right, but nobody asked me. They're not saying, hey, what does Lori think about this?
Right.
And I see big companies making decisions from that. I've watched the trends, and which is one of the things I feel like is part of my job, is to pay attention to what's happening.
Yeah.
Understand how decisions are getting made in tech first and in the industries at large, and sort of the job market overall. Not just are there jobs, aren't there jobs, but what's the decision making? How are companies making decisions? Because that always propagates through.
Right. No, definitely. So as we're kind of starting to wrap up here on time, I want to go through and think about, give me a couple of ideas of things we can share with people that help them with that positioning, no matter where their position is. Like what it is, it doesn't have to be, obviously, because everybody listening here, some of them are entrepreneurs, most of them are in that arena, but that positioning and that process that you're going through and helping your clients stand out. Give us a few nuggets on things that we can start with in order to make sure that we do stand out and we do communicate our value as effective as we should be. So
there's a couple of things I have clients do to get to the core of that, to get started. So one of them is, as you think about, what you love to do, a really good day at work, a good day in the job you really love the most. What do you really enjoy about that work? What makes you good at that work? What do you imagine other people are saying about you on a good day? And then we flip around to, who are you helping, really? Like, categorically, descriptively, who are you helping? What problems are you helping them solve? Problems that they would articulate, not that you would say, this is your problem, but that they would express. What results are you helping them achieve? And then you can talk about how you do that. We tend to want to go to the how first, because that's easier to talk about what we do day to day, week to week. But the how is in service of these other things. And I find when clients start there, and then you can start coming up with how to say that, how to put all that together and really articulate what you do, the value you bring, and the results you help achieve, and what you really enjoy about what you do, like kind of the things you're passionate about. So that's usually where we start, and that's usually the work we do to get there. It sometimes it takes a little work, but it's the most important and most valuable thing you can do. Certainly if you're looking for work, you need to be able to articulate that. If you're in a job and want to get a promotion, you need to be articulating that. In today's market, if you're in a job and want to keep your job, you should be able to express that and make sure your manager and his or her manager and others in the organization know the value you bring and the value your team brings. I think those are the key things that I would point to start with. I know it feels overwhelming, and can feel a little scary. And I think the other nugget I would share, most people think so if you're an employee or looking for work in a company, we think it has to be keyword rich. You do not need to be keyword rich. You need to be clear. Clarity trumps any sort of keywords you might work in there. And if you're an entrepreneur, it needs to be clear, not clever. I hear a lot of people introduce themselves with really clever introductions that is meant to be their positioning statement. And you walk away going, what do you do? I don't really know what that means. I'm a little puzzled by that. So that would be, I think that would be the other thing I would say is clarity trumps everything. You want to remember that when you have a positioning statement, it is something you're communicating to another person. It is always something you're communicating to another person. It's not about clever marketing or cleverness or cuteness. I remember attending a networking event once. It was at a chamber of commerce. Everyone went around the room and they had 15 seconds to introduce themselves. And I remember and I knew that one person in the room had recently trained them all to do their introductions. And what ended up happening, I could hear every introduction. I was like, I don't know what you do. Are you the head? Do you have a plumbing business? Are you an accountant? I mean, that was very clever, but I don't know what that means. And I found that that's when I really realized that clarity is the most important thing. And when you're talking to people about what you do, it's communication that's the underpinning. It's not about do they remember your clever phrases. That's not so much it.
Oh, I love that. And that is so, so true. There are so many times I'll meet somebody and they'll talk and they'll like, whether it be their description, their 30-second commercial and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
huh? It's like, oh, so what exactly is it you do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a clever's cute and it's memorable in a standpoint is like, oh, that was cute, but you don't want to be remembered as just cute. You want to be remembered for what the problem is you solve.
Yes. And if you're in an interview, the same thing is true.
Yep.
Right.
Nice.
Cuteness doesn't like cute and memorable. You want to be remembered for the right reason.
Right.
You want to be remembered because you can help them and you're the best person to help them solve their problem and achieve the results they want.
Yep.
Not because you're likable and that was funny or, oh, I'll remember that. How witty. Okay.
Right.
Still not going to hire you for that. Right. That's the challenge.
No, that is good. Awesome. Well, this has been really good stuff. Now as we're wrapping up here, I got 2 final questions for you.
Okay.
Well, before we do that, let's say, is there anything else that you want to add before we finish up here?
I want to add that, I guess I want to say that if you're feeling stuck and struggling in the job market right now, and this is true in any job market, but I'm noticing it a lot. People are kicking in with the fear a lot sooner this year. Take a breath. It's okay that you're not like everybody else. And really spend the time to figure out what it is that makes you uniquely successful. You don't have to worry about the competition. You just have to show up and talk about the value you bring and how you do that. That's it. And people want that. And if you do that, that is the most clear expression of leadership you can bring to an interview over anything else. If you can tell people what you do and how you can help them and how you can help them solve their problems and achieve their results, that's everything. That's it. That's all they're looking for. The interview is all spent on trying to get to that. So just give that to them and that will help you stand out.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. And just to clarify, everything you just said applies to entrepreneurs as well as much as employees. Definitely.
Yes.
Very cool. Awesome. Okay. So last 2 questions. Last one's the easy one. How do people get a hold of you? So we'll go through that one in just a minute. Okay. But before that, and you know the drill on this one because you've known me for a while. This is the Meet Cool People show.
Yes, it
so
is.
I would love to hear your thoughts of what does Meet Cool People mean to you?
What does Meet Cool People mean to me? So I think of cool. Well, I have an analytical brain, so I'm going to break it down. First, we start with cool people. What does it mean? What are cool people? Cool people are the ones who I think have interesting ideas, interesting ways of looking at the world, which frankly I think means almost everybody, who are doing things that are interesting and not necessarily in the most traditional or established way. I think cool people have ideas and thoughts that the rest of us need to stop and listen to. And when I think about meeting cool people, I guess at first glance, I think meeting could be, oh, hey, how are you? Hi, nice to meet you. But I think meeting is about connecting and connection and really so I think Meet Cool People is a way to connect with people who are interesting and bring ideas that the rest of us would benefit from hearing. Even if it's not something we're directly applying, it's always good to hear cool people ideas. So I think that's what I would say. Well, apparently it's what I just said.
I love it. It was awesome. Very well. Thank you. Okay. So last question. That's the easy one. How do people get a hold of you?
So the easiest way is go to my website, LoriHowardCoaching.com. You can schedule a conversation with me. The second easiest is to go to LoriHoward.com/chat with Lori. And I would say, if anything in here makes you want to talk to me about something and ask questions, let's get on a call and let's talk about it.
Yep.
I am here. My goal is to be helpful and supportive no matter what. You don't have to work with me for that to happen. So, and if you're thinking, maybe I want to work with you, the same thing. Just go to Chat with Lori and schedule a time for us to have a conversation, and we'll do that.
Awesome. Love it. Lori, thank you so much for coming, hanging out today. This was good stuff. I knew it was going to be, because you and I have talked about stuff for a while. So I know we've had a lot of good conversations. I knew you were going to share some good stuff. So awesome. Well, thank you again, Lori, for hanging out. And for everybody else, get out there, have an amazing, amazing week. As always, if there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out, let me know. Take care. And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. If you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to followuprockstar.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to followuprockstar.com and we'll see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rockstar.